Hi, I'm Marty Grisani, and this is The Marty Grisani Show. As a full-time real estate investor and business owner, I have a real fascination of finding the key principles for business success and personal development. This show is a reflection of my personal mission to find out what truly makes somebody successful in business and in life. We will find tools and tactics that they've used to reach those levels. If you're the type of person is not satisfied with average and you have a hunger for learning that will never cease, this show is for you. Welcome to the show. You know, the truth is, when I read your book, I didn't even know about some of these really interesting ways of increasing not just the rent, right? We all know that. That's like a common, you see that in all the books. But Nikita, you don't see a lot of times the decreasing expenses. And, you know, and it's not just, it's like the little things that actually, like you say in the book, add up to huge dollars. And before I get started, because I want to introduce you, you know, I'm very blessed. I've been able to join some very unbelievable organizations who have brought me around people like yourself, who have changed my thinking of, you know, really going bigger. But here's what I think, and here's my theory, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong. I think one of the unfair advantages, now it used to not be, right? You came to this country in 2000, right? At the age of 14. Mm-hmm. So years ago, an unfair advantage would be to not be born in this country. I think now an unfair advantage is being someone who immigrates to this country, because people have perspective, or their family has perspective. And a lot of people who are born here take it for granted. Would you agree with something like that? Like, now I know it's crazy, but and not for everybody, but for the people who really want it or can really feel that, does that resonate at all with you?
Well, yeah, I believe so, because, you know, I think education, as Aristotle said, is an ornament in prosperity and a refuge in adversity. So I'm not sure I so agree with the ornamental part of education, but I definitely agree that education is a refuge in adversity. So basically, if you have a different perspective, if you come from the background of adversity, you just have more natural hustle to you, that you want to succeed. You've seen how it can be, and you also have seen how it could be. And people immigrate usually to a different country in search for a better life, and you know, that's why people come to America. But unfortunately, people who were born here, as you said, they take some things for granted. They don't realize how good they have it, right? So they don't have the same drive to them, because it's like life is good, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, and it makes a lot of sense. And of course, having the will and the want to be better than maybe, or do better than you know, our forefathers and our families, you know, before, and trying to increase that. So yeah, the individual I have on the show today, guys, is Nikita Zhitov. He's the CEO and owner of City Plat. And I'm just a big fan of actually the book, The Expandability of Investment Real Estate. It was one of the first books that really opened my eyes on some of the other, just the little things that you can do. First of all, I didn't even know what expandability was. And then, but value add, right?
Value add, yep.
Value add. And but let me ask you this, because a lot of the people that listen are residential real estate investors, right? They have a buy and hold portfolio. They're fix and flippers, they're wholesalers. Maybe they do a little bit of all of it, right? And maybe they're frustrated. They're frustrated with the high management maintenance and in the low cash flow that some of those single families can produce. What was the aha moment for you where you recognized the power and scale of commercial, and it just made you, you know, wave bye-bye to residential? Do you remember that moment?
I'm not sure if I remember that exact moment, but you know, I think it's natural progression that you always strive for bigger and better things. And I was always amazed how, you know, a small individual like myself can own and control like big buildings. You know, when you're standing on the roof of a 10-story building, and you realize that this is mine, this is my grounds underneath me. It's a very surreal feeling, and so I was just always, coming from a background where people usually didn't own anything. Everything was owned by a government. For a small a human being like myself to be able to own magnificent large buildings, it was just like a boy's dream come true. So I just always try to progress towards bigger buildings.
Yeah, I love that. I think it really is something where you're looking at these buildings from afar thinking, man, how can you ever own it? But then you figure out, there's just a couple of things. You need to know a couple of things. You need to know how to maybe talk to the right people, believe in yourself, like those little things. And it actually can happen because it's just like, you're a human, Nikita, I'm a human. People do this every day. People buy these things every day. It happens, but you just need to think that you can before anything else, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So somebody built those buildings. Every building you see built in your city, somebody at some point in time took out a sales and purchase agreement and wrote a contract to purchase that land, and then took out another contract and contracted with people to build it, got a loan, raised money. So it's, if you have ability to use a telephone and contract with other people, then you can do those buildings. You can own those buildings. You can build those buildings yourself.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's true. It's true. It's just, you got to believe you can first, and you got to visualize that, and visualize yourself doing it. So, in a lot of the books that, you read, at least the ones I've read, it's, you talk a lot about what value add is about, increasing the rents, adding, figuring out ways of adding units to buildings or something along those lines to increase rents. In the book, you talk a lot about, figuring out expenses and the different ways of doing that. My favorite was the tax appeal. And it was one of the first times I've heard of that, right? So why is that such an important strategy, or why is that something that you consistently do on a yearly basis for all your properties? Like, talk to us a little bit about just, the tax appeal process too.
Yeah. So there's obviously investment properties, unlike residential properties for personal residence, is valued based on income stream, right? So a residential house is valued based on sales comparison. My neighbor's house sold for this much, therefore mine should be worth this much. Investment properties then includes both residential and commercial, industrial, multifamily, hotels that are valued based on income stream. How much income the property generates for me, because you're not personally occupying it yourself. So you don't really care to own it unless it adds to your bottom line. So people want to know how much income stream it's going to generate for me if I buy it. And the goal is to obviously maximize that income stream, right? That's where the cap rate comes into play. Well, when you own a property, and the people are not stupid in the market, they know what kind of a cap rates that are buildings trade at. So how can you get a good deal? Those people out there are not stupid, right? They're not going to sell you a property at deep discount. So you got to look for ways how you can beat the system, how you can pay a fair market value for a property based on the current income stream, but then how you can turn around and increase income stream and therefore create the expandability, the value add, right? And so what is the income stream consists of? It consists of two things: income and expenses, right? And that equals to your net operating income. So you can either increase your income, raise the rents. So if you find a property that's under rented for $10 a square foot, and the market rent are really $18 a square foot, speaking like of retail, for example, right? In a multifamily world, this would be you buy a building that's rented for $600 a month, an apartment building, and you realize that the market rents are really $800 a month. Well, so you can either increase the overall income stream on your building, or you can reduce expenses. And sometimes it's hard to reduce expenses without really not sacrificing on your maintenance and upkeep of the building.
Right.
So that's where a lot of people immediately look first, but you got to be careful because you don't want your building to slide into a disrepair, right? Because ultimately that's what's gonna, if you take care of your buildings, eventually your building's gonna take care of you, right? So you don't want to run them into the ground. You want to pay for their maintenance. So you got to look at other expense line items and simply just go through your entire profit and loss statement and see what your expenses are and see how you can minimize expenses. And a lot of people don't even think about property taxes because they get a tax bill and they just keep that line item. This is okay. Let's go to insurance. Can I get a better quotes on insurance? I see somebody can get me a better insurance premium, right? Can I renegotiate my management fee contract with my management company? Can I hire cheaper labor to do my maintenance? You look for all that things, but people rarely pay attention to property taxes. But property taxes is a pretty big expense item, right? So but people don't even think about possibility that you can have a lower property tax bill, because they assume they get a bill in the mail and it says, here's how much I owe the county for my property taxes, and therefore, that's how much I have to pay. But really, that can be challenged, right? And the idea of appealing property taxes really came out of necessity. All I think inventions come out of adversity, right? And during up to 2008 recession, I was just trying to make ends meet, right? Lost, most of my real estate portfolio, and it consisted of mostly residential multifamily properties at the time. And so I was just doing some general brokerage, trying to again make a living. But again, a lot of things were not trading at all. The market was just kind of stagnant. So I was looking for other ways. I would have a building, a $2 million building listed that had a tax value of $2 million, and we had it listed for $500,000.
Wow.
And I would use the property tax value as the highlight. Says, look, the tax value is $2 million. You can buy it for $499. It's a great deal. It sold just a couple of years ago for $2 million. And then it just realized me like, geez, people, this owner, and the property sits in the market, would not sell. So it realized me like this property owner is paying taxes on $2 million. And it's like 30 grand a month. I mean, 30 grand a year on a vacant building. It must be very painful, right? Just the taxes alone, let alone forget the mortgage and other expenses, just the taxes. And obviously it's not worth $2 million. So why is he being taxed on $2 million? So that kind of a thought process made me think like, well, maybe there is an opportunity here. So what I started doing, I started appealing property taxes for third parties and for clients. It's like, hey, listen, I'm going to go and I'm going to argue this case in front of the county board of equalization. I'm going to try to reduce your taxes, which is going to cut your bill from 30 grand a year down to maybe 10 grand a year, right? I'm really going to build a case to try to reduce your property taxes. And it's going to be free service, right? But whatever I save you, I want to charge basically as my fee 50% of the first year savings, and then the year 2, 3, 4, depending how often your county reassesses its values, that will be all your savings to keep. I just want 50% of first year savings. If I do nothing, you're gonna pay 30 grand.
Right.
If I do something and reduce, then there's a potential that you're gonna pay less than 30 grand, right?
No brainer for the client.
Yeah, no brainer. So most people again don't even think about it. So that's how I started doing tax appeals, and then eventually when I get back on my feet and started investing again, buy properties on my own behalf, it's a regular practice that we evaluate all our tax values and I try to appeal them, especially during the reassessment year, because every county reassesses its values every usually 4, 6, or 8 years. In some larger markets like New York, Miami, they do that every year. So there's different ways how you can challenge valuations in those markets, but most of the country, it's usually 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 year cycles.
So that was a client of yours that was trying to sell this property. You realized that was a value you could add, and by the way, at the same time, make some money from. And is that still a big part of CityPlat and your organization? Is that still something?
No, it's not part of a CityPlat business because again, we try to stay focused on buying and investing and developing properties.
Got it.
We have a management division. We have a leasing commercial brokerage division where we mostly lease our own buildings, but they do have some third-party business well. So yeah, we don't try to get distracted. However, I do have a different company that's actually headquartered in Chicago. I'm in North Carolina, but we're trying to roll out a national platform for the property tax appeal.
Excellent.
It's kind of like an app where anybody can appeal their property taxes from the convenience of their smartphone themselves. So we're trying to automate this process and make it basically it's like a tech play. Tech play meets real estate,
Love it.
where we can deliver this utility, this solution to large quantities of people.
What is that? Is that ready for the general public? Could you mention the name?
It's not ready. We've been
Okay.
under development. We have a team of like 12 software engineers been working on this for the past 18 months, and we're probably another 18 months from launching.
Well, look forward to that.
Yes.
Look
But
forward
once
to
we
telling
roll it
people.
out, we want to be able to offer property tax appeal solution nationwide.
Love it. Yeah, I think it's such a need. I mean, again, you think about people who, maybe it's not that they don't want to do it, but they don't have the time. They don't, they're just organizations who have hundreds of properties and they don't have the manpower or all those things. And you're able to do that.
It's not easy to figure it out. So counties don't make it easy to appeal the taxes because obviously that's an income stream revenue for them. So it's hard to figure out the process for each county. How do you go about? Some are easier than others, but most of them make it pretty difficult. And what we want to do, we want to make it easy for people to do it. And also, if you own 100 buildings in different counties in different cities, every county has its own different regulations and the process and the deadlines and assessment cycles, right? So trying to figure it out for one property is painful enough. But if you have a portfolio of 100 in different markets in different states, that could be a full-time job within itself.
No doubt. Do you any advice for people who are looking to do that with their, portfolio? Is it just calling and asking, just, hey, how would I go and fight this?
Yeah, research that, or just wait a little bit longer and you'll be able to use our app.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
But you can hire attorneys. A lot of people just hire attorneys to fight it.
Got it.
But again, it's reducing your expenses, which improves your NOI, and therefore your tax value might be lower and perceived value may be lower. And while homeowners look at the tax value as a guidance indication whether your home should be worse, investment properties tax value is really irrelevant. It's all about NOI and income streams. So the lower the value, the higher the value of the building is, the lower the assessed value. So because it boosts your, and you can also apply for other ways to reduce taxes. If you have land, agricultural land, you can have some tax abatement for agricultural credits. If you have a historic building property, you can apply for historic designation which cuts your property taxes in half, essentially, right? If you make it a historic landmark. But it actually doesn't have to be even historic. It just have to be a contributing structure. It have to have some kind of maybe architectural significance or community or social significance. So because we've been able to get a landmark historic designation on a not brand new, but almost brand new all glass Class A office buildings.
I read that in the book. I thought that was
we were able to prove its architectural contribution significance.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Therefore, it should be designated as a landmark. So, yeah, don't assume that it's all just historic properties only.
Another one that I thought was really interesting. It was actually the first time I was able to read something about it and actually get a true example. I think that's one of the really cool things about the book is that there's some really good examples in there, and there's some real actual case studies, and it's not just, philosophy on things, right? And one of the things that was really interesting, and I really think that potentially, especially in upstate New York, where I am, a lot of land, right? A lot of land, a lot of just unused land for that's got a lot of potential. So one of the things was entitlements. Can you kind of explain your mindset on entitling land and just how powerful that can be?
Well, yeah, it's one of the best ways to create value, equity, quickly is in land, because you take something that maybe is zoned agricultural or could be unzoned or zoned medium density residential, and you simply upzone it to high density residential, right? And therefore you can do more units. So builders, whether it's multifamily or single family builders, they would pay you on how many units I can build here. And let's say the going rate is $30,000 per raw unit or per raw lot on the land. Well, if you just double the density by upzoning the property, and now you can, instead of doing 50 lots, you can now do 100 lots. Granted, they're going to be a little bit smaller, but you therefore, in theory, double the value of the property. And usually, you can control land with very little cost out of pocket, right? You can just have option consideration, earns money, and long due diligence period. Not people who are selling, trading residential properties obviously expect a quick close in today's day and age. Commercial also relatively quick close, a little bit longer than residential, but typically 90, 120 days average closing for commercial transaction. For land, first of all, we cannot get anything done or approved in less than 2 years. So it's not uncommon for a typical land closing timeline to be 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Right. At least in the markets where we work with, it takes 6 to 9 months to go through the rezoning process, then another 6 months to go through second approval process, then another 120 days to go through construction drawings process. So before you're able to, from the moment you found a piece of land and you said, okay, this is a good project, I'm going to build my project here, it's going to be 2 years before you're able to put a shovel in the ground. Then you go through all the rezoning, neighborhood meetings, planning committee, city council, meet with engineers, do surveys, and all of those things. So you can typically control a large piece of land with nominal consideration. Like we oftentimes control a $5 million tract of land for as little as $10,000. But then if we, during that control period, if we're able to rezone it from medium density residential, from industrial to multifamily, with the trend we've seen in the last few years, the multifamily land has been high in demand, and the values have increased from $15,000, $17,000, $20,000 per door on multifamily land up to $40,000, $50,000 a door. So if you got a 300 unit apartment site at 50 a door, that's $15 million. So you might buy an old shopping center for $5 million as a shopping center because that's what it's worth, and people would think you will have overpaid for it, but really you buying it for land value because it has a lot of parking, right? And you rezone it to multifamily, and now the same, and you simply don't do anything physical to the property, you simply turn around and flip the same shopping center, but now as the multifamily pad for $15 million, you make $10 million just on without doing anything physical to the center itself. So that's what we've been doing, a lot of that in the last 3 years, as multifamily prices have skyrocketed in the Sunbelt states.
I love that thinking different, Nikita. I love that idea of it's so many people see things one way, right? And you want to really be a 5-tool player. And so having those different techniques and having those different skill sets are just a game changer for investors. And I love what you said, where people would say that, oh, you're crazy for buying it for this much. But in your back of your head, that there's a different play that you're implementing. I just think that's great.
Yeah, for sure. And well, real estate, is a big money sport, right? We're not dealing in widgets. we're dealing with millions of dollars, everything we deal with in real. And a lot of people know just one way to buy real estate, basically buy low, sell high, right? To get traditional financing. But in reality, real estate has so many tools, like option agreements, lease option agreements, different first right of refusals, contract for deeds, seller financing, all-inclusive trust deeds, rep notes. I mean, substitution of collateral. It has about 1,000 different tools that you can utilize in real estate. So, especially if you're dealing in highly competitive market, like I'm sure, the entire state of New York is pretty competitive. People know the values. They're not gonna give away their property for you to utilize its strategy, buy low, sell high. You're gonna have to get creative. And well, how do you buy a property? How do you buy a house for $400,000? Sell the same house for $400,000 that very same day. Actually, you bought it for 400, you sold it for 400 the same day, which is the market value of the house. And you make $200,000 to sell in the process. So, well, if you know the answer to the question, then you better go and get educated, right? Because that easily done, because that's what you're gonna have to know how to do in a highly competitive market where you just simply cannot get properties at discount. So that can be accomplished by a tool known as all-inclusive trust deed, i.e. rep note, right? You bought it for 400 at 3% cost of funds. You sold on the rep note at 7% cost of funds, and that spread, that interest spread, and you bought it at a 3% fix, and you sold it at 7%. It's set as a floor that's tied to an index, so your margin can only increase from there on forward. And you made yourself at least $200,000 over the course of the loan. So, but anyway, you need to know all the tools, because you never know which tool is going to come into play. When we look at the property, and some seller might be stuck on the value, right? It says, I want $2 million for my property. And there's no way this property is worth more than $1 million, and he wants $2 million. He's just crazy. Well, in reality is, if you really want the property, there's going to be a way you're going to figure out how to do it. You just need to use the right tool in your toolbox. The problem is people don't have enough tools in their toolbox. That's why at CityPlat, we require everybody to read books on a weekly basis. We just had our meeting this morning, and there's probably in our small team of 20, there is probably over 50 books have been read in the past week.
Wow.
Right. So if you constantly feed your mind with new tools and new ideas, you're gonna sharpen. That's how you get an edge on your competition. Well, real estate offers about 1,000 tools, but people know only a couple, right? Most even seasoned investors we run into, they just know a few ways to do it, traditional ways to do it. But when we look at the property again, we analyze it from every different angle, and we just find the right tool to apply to the particular situation. So the owner who wants $2 million, especially if it's a long-term hold. So in the long-term hold, price is the least important part of the equation. How much you pay for the property, your monthly cash flow and your monthly payments is the most important component. In the short-term flip, of course, the price is most important because you're trying to buy it lower, so because your intent is to flip it in a short period of time for a profit. So you want to buy it as low as possible. But in the long-term hold property, price is the least important part of the equation. So what's better, to pay $2 million for the property if I can get principal only payments fixed at $4,000 a month until the loan is fully amortized with 98% owner financing, or would I be better off paying $1 million for the property if I have to go get a traditional bank loan, 15-year amortization at 7% interest and put 30% down? Right. So if you don't know that math, you should do some math, because you will figure out that actually you'll be better off paying $2 million if you can get a basically 0% interest loan, principal only loan with fixed payments of $4,000 a month. Because eventually it's going to be paid off at the year after cash flow, right? Actually, I can probably pay $4 million for the property. You know what,
right.
Mr. Seller? Yeah, I know you want 2, but I'm actually going to offer you $3 million, but here's the terms that I would like. You can have your price as long as you can get my terms. So again, it's nothing is black and white with real estate. There's always different ways to look at things, and depending on what your objectives and goals are with the property.
I love that. I think that's such an aha moment for me. And I think if anybody's listening, they should go back and re-listen to that, because Nikita really just spells it out where it's not emotional. Like with residential, a lot of it's very emotional. In commercial, it's math, and it's knowing the strategies, and it's making sure that you stay up on those strategies. So that's actually to my next question in regards to strategy and decision. Do you have a formula, Nikita, that you use, or do you have like a process you use when you do make a decision, whether it's for a deal or whether it's a business decision? Is it something where maybe you take some time to really think about it? Are you a quick decision maker? Like what's your formula for making decisions?
So first of all, yeah, I'm very quick decision maker for sure. But the formula, it's usually just intuition. You just go with the gut feeling. As we grow, we get more formalized as we scale. Our portfolio grows. We have in-house underwriters who I don't even look and underwrite my own deals anymore. I just look at the property. It looks like the property I like. We send it to our team. They underwrite it. They look at it the same way the banks will underwrite it, and they tell me, says, yes, here is where we need to buy this at for it to make sense in cash flow. But most often when I make a decision to move forward or not is, again, it's based on gut feeling. Deal could be, and keep in mind, we have, a lot of people who send us deals daily.
Mm-hmm.
So my entire day can be filled looking at deals all day long, because people bring opportunities, because we partner with people, right? Hey, if you bring me a deal, we'll let you roll in your commission into the deal, right? Or if there is no commission, then we'll just put you in a deal if you bring us a good deal, because we want you to bring more deals to us. So we have people bring us deals all day long. Of course, a lot of them are trash, but there's some good ones out there. But usually just go with a gut feeling. Deal could be great on paper, but just something doesn't feel right. And from the experience, and every time I bought the building where I had not the right feeling about it, I regretted it. And therefore, I just usually go with the gut feeling.
Go with the gut feeling. Now, let's talk a little bit about that for just a second. Now, you said, buying some buildings that you had a bad feeling about and they didn't turn out great. Do you remember a bad decision that you made that you were able to learn something really big from? Like, is there a bad decision? Yeah, very quickly.
Many. Yes, many. And it's usually most of the decisions I've made had to do with diversifying away from real estate. Early on, like what kind of got me in trouble during the 2008 recession is I got overly confident, and I started diversifying because I've heard people, that's what you're supposed to do, diversify. So I started diversifying away from real estate, and I had a nightclub, a laundromat, and invested in some restaurants, and started just not paying attention to my core business, but diversifying all these other retail businesses. And I've lost money pretty much on every single one of them. And it only lost money there, but it's also brought down my real estate and hurt me in that sector. And then some time goes by again. That was 2008, 2009, and I told myself at that time, if I ever recover, I'll never diversify from real estate again. And of course, 10 years, and what happens is we forget our own promises. So 10 years goes by, and we're back to things that, great. And we're 2017, 2018 timeline. And I said, okay, I'm, feel confident and comfortable again with life. I'm going to diversify again. But again, I'm not going to go into retail business because that's just too much work. And
no more nightclubs, at least.
Yes, no. So I said, I'm going to buy serious businesses. So I invested in the bank, where I was promised the board seat on a startup bank in Washington, D.C. I bought a coal mine in West Virginia, and I bought a title insurance company in 6 states. So I said, this is like serious businesses. This is not your retail restaurant type of business or nightclub, And again, unless you run them yourself, at least with me, I don't know how those, people on the Shark Tank, they do it where they have 300 companies. I concluded for me it just doesn't work, because like the failure rate of banks is probably less than 1%. Well, guess what? The bank I invested in happened to be that 1%.
Oh gosh.
Right? Again, the failure rate for title insurance companies is also very, very little. But again, unless you manage that business yourself and you're involved intimately in its operations, I concluded that it's just not going to work, because people are going to steal from you. People are just you need to have boots on the ground, right? So for me, it was supposed to be passive investments, and again, I'm just lost so much money. I'm thinking that I could have that money invested in real estate. I would be so much better off. But I'm taking good money from real estate and investing in for this business I know nothing about, and just like throwing money into dumpster. It's just stupid. So now I get it. For me, it was two tries of diversification into different periods of life, and the second time didn't invite me out like the first one did, but it definitely hurt. So now I have made declaration promise that no matter how good the idea is, or how sweet the pie is, I'm just not going to diversify away from real estate. Real estate has so many different aspects. You can do industrial, multifamily. You can diversify within real estate. If you're bored and you want to have fun with something new, it's okay, just as long as it has to do with real estate, no auxiliary businesses. So for me, that was bad decisions. Real estate itself, the only bad decisions I can think of is selling real estate.
Yeah.
I don't think I've regretted buying. I mean, I bought some bad properties, but I still don't regret buying them.
I love what you said, Nikita, in the book, where you said sell the buildings, keep the land. If you do have to sell.
Yes, if you have to sell, build. Don't assume they have to be married forevermore. Building and land can be divorced and separated. Let go of the building if you want to sell the building, right? If it gives you too much maintenance headaches. But if it's in good infill location, you try to keep the land under the building, because that's, put it on a 99-year ground lease, and that's a forever income.
Now, would you recommend, because I've heard this a few times for people that, enjoy it a lot. Let's say I heard this a few times from different people. If they could go back, if they had to start over, they would become a broker. Do you really recommend that role for people? Like, obviously that's something that you did. Is that something that, even if you had to go back, you would do it again?
So I started out as an investor. I got my license, I think in 2006. And I started real estate in 2004. But I haven't really practiced it until 2010, 11. So I had my license just for education purposes, but I didn't practice because I always view myself as an investor. I was doing a lot of house flips, right? I would go and find it, and that's a very competitive, brutal world to be trying to flip houses, right? Renovate houses. And if I had to do it over again, I would bypass that and do commercial brokerage instead, because when I was flipping houses in my late teens or early 20s, I would work so hard to find a deal where I can buy a house for $150,000 and then have to get money because I had no credit, good or bad. I just simply had no credit, so I had to find investors, raise the money, expensive money to buy the property and renovate it, and then put 50 in it, renovate it, try to sell it for $250, pay commissions, and then if it sits in the market, I have to worry about builders risk insurance, contractors, theft, like vandalism, mortgage payments. If it sits in the market extra 3 months, it's really, really painful, because when you trying to survive in this business. So at the end of the day, if everything goes right in perfect scenario, you make 30 grand profit, right? And it's a year of work and carrying the cash flow, versus as a commercial broker, you can list a small building for, let's say, 1.5 million. Don't even get both sides, just get one side of the commission, 3%, 50 grand. And you make 50 grand. If it's in the market extra 2 months, well, guess what, market is slow, because you're not the one who paying mortgage payments, right?
Right.
Of course, you try to sell it as quickly as possible for the owner, but you're not feeling the pain. And if you look at the average time invested, being a commercial broker, I mean, to make 50 grand, I might have 4 hours in a deal, versus when I was trying to buy, renovate, look at the finishes, meet with contractors, do all the bidding, and it takes 9 months of time, and I make 30 grand at the end of the day after 9 months of work. Well, I might have had 300 hours, in the project.
No doubt. No doubt.
So yeah, so you make $100 an hour versus you make $12,000 an hour. Big difference. So I would recommend is doing commercial brokerage, especially because Harvard Business School did a study, and they looked at all different professions, right? And said, okay, and they analyzed all the different professions based on capitalization requirements, education requirements, office space requirements, startup, requirements. They put it all in a blender, and what came out of it is number one best profession to be in. Guess what? Real estate sales. Because for $400 and 4 weeks of classes, you can have your real estate license, right? In most states.
Yep.
And it's absolutely nothing for residential real estate brokers to sell 8 to 10 houses a year and make over $100,000. Absolutely nothing. I mean, that's average bottom line. And if you're good to residential broker, you're gonna make, you're gonna sell 30, 40 houses a year. You're gonna make yourself, 300-400 grand. And commercial is the same thing, but it's just bigger numbers. It's a little bit longer to get going because you have to build up your, pipeline and contacts and things like that. But once you get going, it's it's a common thing that for common brokers to sell 8 to 10 properties a year and make $500,000. And if you're a good commercial broker, you're going to sell 30, 40 buildings a year and make yourself $2, $3, $4 million in commissions, right? As a commercial broker. So why waste all that energy, take the risk, take on hard money loans, worry about insurance, for, construction projects, to make, to flip houses when you can have zero risk involved and, be a commercial broker and make, $1 million to $2 million a year.
I love that.
So, but again, that's it's still working for dollars, right? Because you have to, kill every time to eat. So as long as you don't spend and squander the money that you make, commercial brokerage is a great way to get started. But as long as, again, you invested money, because the only way to build wealth over time is by owning properties over an extended period of time, right? You cannot create wealth by just making $1 million or $2 million a year selling buildings. If you don't invest it, the money is going to become worthless. It's going to evaporate, or you're going to end up spending it. So you always have to invest in it and hold on to the properties long term. That's the only way to build wealth. So as long as you do that, then it's pretty much the easy formula to building wealth.
And then also being a broker, you have the ability to, with your organization, you get to look at these deals, and maybe even if you're managing them, you get potentially maybe first right at buying some of these buildings. Is that fair to say? Or
possibly, if you have a relationship with your clients, if that's what you do, commercial brokerage, and they decide to sell, let's say you handle the releasing and they decide to sell one day, of course you're gonna be in front of their mind that, hey, if you ever want to decide to sell this building, I would love an opportunity to buy the building from you. So I don't do brokerage myself anymore,
right.
But we have a brokerage company here at
right.
But I focus most of my time on investing now. But again, brokerage is what saved my bacon, after the 2008 recession. So, I respect brokers, and I respect the work they do and the hustle that they go through. And I definitely recommend it to anyone who is getting started or who is trying to get on their feet or recover from whatever downturn you might have gone. Because again, it's you can make more in brokerage than biggest CEO in America.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I want to get to the speed round because I want to be very cognizant of your time. And I really appreciate, Nikita, you coming on here. This has been awesome. Very insightful, very informative. So what are the, I guess I was going to ask you in regards to the books that you'd recommend, maybe like the last book you recommend or the most recent book you recommend. But you just mentioned that your team is reading, 50 books a week. So out of those books recently, has there been 3 that have just been like really super good or helpful for your team and for yourself?
Just have so many books that are just amazing and awesome. One that came to mind, because we just talked about it, is Compound Effect. Definitely. So you're not gonna see results if you do something. You go to the gym, 5 days a week. You're probably not gonna see results even in 3 months, right? So it's easy to get discouraged. But I promise you, if you do that exercise for consistently 3 years, you take a picture of yourself before and after, you're gonna see big difference in how you look in the mirror, right? So the same thing with doing small things in business. You feeding your brain. You might get no ideas out of the books, but you keep reading weekly, right? And I promise you, you're going to be a different person 3 years from now if you keep feeding your brain with positive stimuli over extended period of time. There's nothing more common than overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 3 years. So, because that's where the compound effect kicks in. So that's definitely one of my favorite books. And I like the book Go Giver. There's go getters and there's go givers, and we have a go giver mentality. So you just always gotta be willing to share. And
you're proving it right now. You're proving it right now. So we
always comes back to you tenfold. And what would be the third one? So there's a couple of books on just expanding your mind and thinking big. I like the Trump's book, Think Big and Kick Ass. He co-authored it with one other guy who narrates it, but it's definitely one of my favorite books as well. Think Big and Kick Ass by Trump.
I love it. Haven't read those, so I will. I love you saying the compound effect, because as somebody who is in that journey currently, from going from residential, we have like 5 flips going on right now. We feel broke because we got 1 that's closing, and then you got 4 you're working on, and it's brutal world. And as we're transitioning, our claim to fame here, Nikita, my partner Matt and I, is we cold call, we market, we're texting, we're mailing, we're doing all those things, right? And we're building up a really great list of people to follow up with, and we're following up, and we like that. And just you saying that though, of listen, it takes some time. You just compound. It's almost like the compounding pounding. You just got to keep pounding at it. That right. Really helped me.
Yeah, the only failure is to quit, right? Or not try, right? But if you try, if you keep doing it, again, you might see little progress. But if you just stick with it, everybody you've ever read about who's extremely successful would tell you everybody gets knocked down, right? Everybody gets knocked down. The key is to just get back up. Sam Walton, what's your success, Sam? Well, when I get knocked down, I get back up. I would just last on standing. So you just got to keep going at it. And if you don't quit, then eventually you're going to succeed. The key is not quitting.
I love it. I'm going to end it there. I think that was freaking brilliant. I appreciate you, Nikita, for coming on here. Thanks for sharing your journey. And for everybody listening, this is my journey of going from residential to commercial. Anyone that's listening and is going through that journey as well, follow along, keep listening, because I have juggernauts in the game like Nikita on to share the wisdom. Nikita, thanks again, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Marty Grisani Show. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, leave us an honest rating and review. If you're on Spotify, make sure you follow us for weekly episodes.